So I was in the Starbucks the other day paying for my coffee with my watch, and I thought to myself, you know, I can text from my watch, I can take calls from my watch, I can actually pay for things with my watch. I wonder if technology is going to make pockets obsolete. Hey everybody, this is CIT 12. It is week 2, our first normal week, and let's start out with some questions. So last week I got some questions from people who were trying the lab a little bit early and maybe ran into some problems. I figure a lot of you are going to be trying the lab this week since this is the first week we have a lab assigned. And so you might run into some of the same problems, and I should probably talk about it. By far, the number one issue that people will have is you click on the link for the lab. So you're in my IT lab, you're logged in, all that works fine. You set it up the way we talked about in the video last week, and you click on the link and nothing happens. Now, if that happens to you, check the address bar of your browser. You may see a small icon of a little blue window with a red X, or you might see a message. It depends what browser you're using, but it'll say something to the equivalent when you click on it or mouse over it. It'll say that your browser has blocked a pop-up for this website. Now, if you click or right-click, depending on your browser and your operating system, right? But click or right-click, you should see a list of options, and it'll say, hey, do you want me to just allow pop-ups for this website? Say yes. That's the option you want to choose. You don't have to turn off your pop-up browser or your pop-up blocker in your browser. Just say that you're going to allow pop-ups for the My IT Lab website because all of your labs will pop up in a new window. And most browsers, by default, come with their pop-up blockers turned on. It used to be a very popular thing to sort of spam advertisements by pushing a lot of new windows up onto your screen whenever you visited websites. There's some ways around it. Some people still do it and get around the pop-up blockers, but that's probably the problem that you're having if you click on the link and nothing happens. Your browser just blocked the pop-up that the lab would show up in. All right, now if you run into another issue with My IT Lab, you might find that one of these strategies will work. One, try a different browser. If you're using Google Chrome, maybe switch to Mozilla Firefox. Changing your web browser can sometimes just change the settings or whatever it is you installed into the browser that's causing the conflict with My IT Lab. People have different setups, you might have different settings. You may have installed ad blockers, which ad blockers can cause all sorts of issues on websites. Maybe you installed a Yahoo toolbar or something else, right? It's really hard to know specifically what's going on with your system, why My IT Lab isn't working. But switching browsers often solves the problem. The two that I recommend for My IT Lab are Mozilla Firefox and Google's Chrome browser. Although I've heard from students that Internet Explorer works just fine. Apple's Safari, not a good choice. Doesn't work terribly well. It's the browser I use most often, so I'm not bagging on that browser. It just doesn't work with My IT Lab very well. But that's a good solution. Another solution might be to do a software update. You might just have something that's out of date on your browser or an old version of the browser. Some people they never run software updates. Later on in the class, we'll tell you why that's actually a really dangerous thing to do, especially if you're going to be on the internet. But needless to say, run a software update. That might solve the problem. It solves actually a lot of problems on your computer if you have not done one in a long time. The last one is if you go into the week 1 folder or click on the syllabus link, you will see the browser tune-up program from Pearson that you can just install onto your computer, use it to launch My IT Lab. And what it'll do is it'll look at your browser, it'll go over a bunch of different settings and things and make some temporary changes so that you have a session that will work with My IT Lab. It solves most every problem you would have with My IT Lab, so it's sort of the catch-all and will work. I like to not install stuff onto my computer unless I have to, so I say it's the last option just because that's the way I am. I think most instructors would say you should do it first because it'll solve all the other problems, but if you can just switch browsers or update your software, that's going to help you out in the long run anyway. So some advice on My IT Lab: if you happen to have problems, actually doing your lab this week. Now, as for what we're doing this week we're covering Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is all about technology and how it's changing things in our lives. We're able to do all this great new stuff, yada, yada, yada. It's a very light chapter. So read Chapter 1 and then take a look at my, my lecture video, because I kind of take a little different spin on the idea of change. The idea that things are changing. We may not like the change. The change can be both good and bad. And specifically when it comes to the job market, technology will take some skills and make them more valuable, and take other skills and make them less valuable. So it's really important to kind of at least know what's going on so that you can properly navigate the economy and the job market, and make sure that you put yourself in a good position for a career that's going to last a lifetime. By the way, there's also a quiz on Chapter 1, our first quiz, so make sure you take that. Multiple choice, 20 questions, shouldn't take you too long, and you can take it as many times as you want until you get the score that you like. Just remember that in 2 weeks, it disappears. So, make sure you get a score in before that happens. So this week's discussion is going to hit on a lot of the themes that are in my lecture video. Specifically, how changes in technology really lead to changes in the job market, and how you can use some knowledge about sort of the value of different careers, different technologies, to sort of help guide you when it comes to choosing a career that you'll be happy with in the long run. Navigating the modern economy is important, and I mentioned that in the lecture video, but there are 2 resources I want you to check out this week. The first one is called the Hamilton Project. The Hamilton Project looks at college majors. Doesn't matter what job you end up with, right? There's a lot of people who get degrees in physics and then decide to just go, run a small bar in a little, Austin suburb or something. We don't know what you're going to do with your college degree, right? People have changes of career, they do different things. And that's great, that's wonderful, that's life, right? But if you have this college degree, this particular major, how well do you end up doing out in the job market, right? What is your average income? That's what the Hamilton Project is looking at. And it's important because most people really, really care about what college they get into. They want to go to an Ivy League school or some really small little private school, but they don't really think about their college majors. And most economists will tell you your major has a much bigger determinant, it determines your income a lot more than what college you went to. You're probably better off at Fresno State with an engineering degree than you are going to UCLA and getting a degree in English. And my wife teaches English. I mean, I can pretty much guarantee you this is true. What I'm saying is, it's helpful to know in advance so that you can make a good decision. The second resource is for the state of California, occupational guides. Now here, we're not looking at the college major, we're looking at the job. So if you actually work as an accountant in the state of California, here's a bunch of information about accountancy. And these occupational guides are really rich. I have a video that tells you how to use both of these resources in the week 2 folder. So I'm not going to go into a bunch of details, but it will have in there what are the working conditions like? What can you expect from the job? What kind of person would be a good choice for this job? As well as what are the job prospects in the future? They sort of do some predictions about, how many jobs will be available, more, fewer, in the next 10 years. And so you can actually see what jobs are predicted to increase and improve, and there'll be more jobs available, so that you can choose a career that will hopefully lead you to have a job, in 10 years. Point being, I want you to have as much information as possible so that you can make a good decision about your career. And that's not to say that you should just make your decision based on money, right? If you want to be a social worker, you are going to be very disappointed by some of the numbers you see. Let's just be clear about that right now, right? But we need great social workers in our country. So if it's something you're called to, if it's something you really feel strongly about, then absolutely do it. But I would feel so much better if you knew what you were getting into. If you knew, oh wow, that's how much a social worker makes in the state of California? I could be an accountant and do so much better. Is this a choice I really want to make for my life? because I'd rather you be a happy social worker in 10 years because you knew what you were getting into, than to be disappointed and be a jaded social worker. Nobody needs a jaded social worker. And finally, we have our lab, in my IT lab. It's on office features. It is a very light lab. It's actually a short one too, but it's a good first experience into my IT lab. So you can get in there, kind of see how the questions work. Like I said, we have that video from last week that shows you how to use my IT lab. So take a look at that. If you ever need to check it again, just go back to refer to it. It's also under the syllabus link. But it's on office features. It covers all the different programs, but it's just like, hey, how do I open a file in this program? How do I actually how do I, start up Word? I think it's probably the first question you'll be asked. It's very light and just sort of, how do I sort of navigate using Microsoft Office and some of its most basic features. And that's it. So to do sort of a quick wrap up, take a look at Chapter 1 and the lecture video. There's a quiz on Chapter 1, so you'll be graded on that quiz. The discussion, make sure you make a post with all of your initial thoughts about the research you've done into your potential future career, and then respond to somebody else. There's got to be somebody else in the class who wants a similar career to yours. So talk about it. Were you surprised about what you found? And then finally, the MyIT lab, make sure you get the lab in. So quiz, discussion, lab, and you're done for the week. And as always, if you have any questions, just email me, brian.baker@fresnocitycollege.edu, or contact me in any of the many ways that you know how to contact me from the syllabus. All right? Yeah, should be a fairly easy week. Like I said, this would be a good week to find that rhythm that you're going to start having for the rest of the semester. When are you going to do your lab? When are you going to do your discussions? When are you going to have time to do the reading and do the quiz? And yeah, I'm sure everybody will do just fine. All right. So like I said, if you have any questions, make sure to contact me, and I will see you online.